All right, so here's our first briefing webinar on this upcoming weather system. Of course, we've been putting out information by email and on web and social media for a while now on this upcoming storm. So where do we stand right now? We do have this sort of broad area of low pressure in the southwest Gulf, the Bay of Campeche, and it's a bit disorganized down there. You can see an X where the hurricane center is putting the most likely location of the center of circulation right now. Out of that big low, it's possible we could see a depression or tropical storm form over the next 2 days. The hurricane center gives that about a 70% chance likelihood. But this is kind of important. Regardless of whether it forms or not, we are expecting impacts from this weather scenario, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. We are looking for rain, heavy at times over portions of the area, increasingly gusty winds, and high tides and high surf as well for the coastal areas. So potential for some flash flooding due to the rainfall and for coastal flooding due to the storm surge. And there is a Hurricane Hunter aircraft en route to the system right now investigating it. This map shows our latest forecast for the rainfall through Thursday, and you can see these are sort of averages across the region. Lesser amounts in the northern counties, greatest amounts in the southwest counties, down near Matagorda Bay, perhaps 8 to 10 inches on average, more like 4 to 6 inches along the I-10 corridor, and 2 to 3 as we get north up toward Bryan and Conroe and Huntsville. So that's the way it looks right now, but as often is the case, we can get these bands with heavier rain setting up, and that's something we're going to have to really look out for, because the ingredients are there for perhaps a band of higher rainfall totals somewhere in our area, most likely in those southwest zones that are featured more on this map. Talking a little bit more about the flash flood risk, this is something we call the excessive rainfall outlook. Gives an idea of where we might see flash flooding, and this does account for some of the soil moisture, the saturated areas we have, especially up north. And today there is just the slightest of chances of flash flooding today and tonight. Really not too much of a concern over the next really 24 hours. As we jump ahead to tomorrow, notice this moderate risk area that includes Harris, Liberty, down to Jackson County, and then on to the coast. This is for mainly the period tomorrow night. Technically, the period is Tuesday and Tuesday night, but most of the heaviest rain should start as we get into tomorrow evening. And then looking ahead to Wednesday, you see the moderate risk area shifting a little bit east, or excuse me, a little bit westward, as the band of heaviest rain shifts westward as well. So again, just to sum up, some heavy rain in areas, especially Tuesday night and Wednesday. And for this reason, we have a flood watch issued just about 30 minutes ago. Based on those rainfall totals, you see those counties in green there are now under a flood watch starting 7 p.m. Tuesday. So again, it's no surprise you see the watch in the areas where the higher rainfall totals are expected. The other headline I want to talk about right now is a coastal flood watch. You can see that along the coast of the bays and the Gulf Coast. These are the areas where we could be looking at some moderate coastal flooding. Not just nuisance flooding, but perhaps even some water on roadways in these zones. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. So talking a bit more about the coastal flood threat, what we're looking at here is a storm surge model, basically for Galveston Bay entrance. And all the observations left of this vertical red line are past observations. And to the right, we have a forecast. And what you can see by the top line here, this black line, is the increasing water levels at each high tide. The highest of the high tides being Wednesday morning. And you can see the black line is the most likely value, right around 4.5 feet above mean lower low water. But the gray area gives some spread in the range of possibilities. And you can see even some solutions over 5 feet. So that's pretty significant. That's not your typical nuisance level coastal flooding. So watch out for low-lying areas along the bay, along the coast, for some high water around times of high tide, really starting tomorrow morning, perhaps peaking Wednesday morning, and then continuing even at the time of high tide Thursday morning. So the coastal flood watch is in effect, soon to be upgraded to a warning for portions of the area. Talking a bit more now about the elevated wave heights and the high seas offshore, as well as some of the marine winds. What we're looking at here on the left-hand side is a forecast partially from National Weather Service Houston, but also the TAFB unit out of the Hurricane Center for the open waters of the Gulf. And so what are we looking at here? On the left-hand side, this is Tuesday, 7 a.m. snapshot. The wind barbs here are showing 30 to 35 knots of wind developing over the Gulf of Mexico. Now, I want you to notice the wind field here. We have strong winds extending all the way across the Gulf. It's actually that long fetch of strong winds that's leading to our surge and tidal issues, even more so than this tropical disturbance. So in some ways, this part of the forecast isn't affected by whether we get a formation or not. At any rate, Tuesday morning, you can see those 30 to 35 knot winds kind of working their way in from the east. And then on the right-hand side, by Wednesday morning, we're seeing some 10 to 15 foot seas getting into our coastal waters, the 0 to 20 mile zone from the coast. And again, borderline tropical storm force winds up around 30 knots, just a little bit higher would give us the gales or the tropical storm force. Here's a closer look at the forecasted significant wave heights. Looking in at the coastal waters, you can see even some waves even a bit closer to shore, up 7 to 10 feet, just a little ways off the coast, 10 to 12 feet at the 19 buoy Tuesday morning, and then Wednesday morning even a bit higher, some 12 to 15 foot seas likely down by buoy 19 off of Matagorda. I won't read through this, but this is a kind of a summary that you can look at. I will share these slides after. It's kind of pulled in together here. The different hazards: river flooding, flash flooding, coastal flooding, high surf, marine hazards. These are all on the table for this event. Of course, we've had more than our fair share of river flooding already, especially in the northern counties. The only glimmer of good news here is it looks like the heaviest rainfall is going to be more in the southwest areas. However, it won't take much to make the river flooding situation worse in those areas as well. Flash flooding, once again, the timing there, just wanting to highlight a few items on this slide. We do have some flash flood threat really through early Thursday, but the greatest flooding potential is going to be Tuesday night and Wednesday, so keep that in mind. And then I don't think I've talked about this yet. There is a high surf rip current component as well, so we don't want to see swimmers out in the waters at all, during these periods of time. So key takeaways: we do have this weather system soon to bring in heavy rains, gusty winds, and high tides, potential from flooding, both from the rainfall and the high tides as far as coastal flooding. There is some uncertainty in the amount of rain and the location of any heavier bands. So again, we have to keep an eye out on radar trends, especially as we get to tomorrow afternoon and evening, to see if we get any heavier bands setting up over one location. The flood watch has just been issued for portions of the area, mainly based on the higher rainfall amounts, basically west and south areas. Marine winds are looking to get up close to gale or tropical storm force, seas building to 10 to 15 feet. And as I mentioned, the impacts are expected pretty much whether or not we do get a depression or storm form. Now, if we do get a formation of a storm, don't be surprised to see the Hurricane Center start issuing their own forecasts. But things like a cone track, things like that will be of really limited use here because the impacts are going to be so far north of the center. So I would say overall our forecast is medium. We have a pretty high confidence in the overall scenario of gusty winds and high tides and a period of heavy rain. But we're not really certain about where any sort of heavier rain bands will form. More likely southwest zones, but nonetheless, we all need to be on guard for that.